Hello world, I am Darya Zhuk, co-founder at DŌBRA Studio. Warm welcome everyone to the second episode of the DŌBRAtalks podcast. Today we'll talk about studio startup from scratch or from concept to seed. Join us as we navigate the complexity of the venture builders world. A quick recap of our first episode where we delved into venture studios as asset class. Reps from such organizations like Morrow, Studio Hub, Zurich Institute of Technology, Uniborn Foundation shared their insights. It's a must-watch, featuring the creme de la creme of the venture studio realm. Today, we explore an equally trending topic, I should say. Building a studio startup from scratch. How do venture studios validate startup ideas, match founders, generate VC FOMO, and offer investors unique value propositions? So this is really crucial knowledge. As all of us know, investors prefer founders who share a long story and history. However, our guests' experiences challenge this norm. What value can a residency at a venture studio bring to the startup founders themselves? So I am very happy to introduce our brilliant speakers for today's DŌBRAtalks. Matthew Burris, globally recognized thought leader in the design of startup studios, authoring, advising, and consulting on the venture studio model while developing his own venture builder, Savvy Thinkers Studios in Atlanta, and being a partner at Venture Studio Associates, a startup studio accelerator. Matt has been involved in developing dozens of studios, building tools for cap tables analysis, exploring studios returns, and modeled GP stakes investments. Farhad Alessandro Mohammadi, seasoned digital entrepreneur, business angel, author of the book Startup Studio Manifesto and several white papers, by the way, together with Matt, as I understand. So you were co-authors. Founder of Mamazon, the very well-established and very first venture studio in Italy, which combined the startup studio and studio fund. So you use this dual entity model. And Farooq Shahabi, serial entrepreneur, co-founder and CEO of Pharmaloo, a no-code collaboration platform, startup wise guys mentor, TEDx speaker, chairman at Idea Run, quite well-established Estonian startup studio with several brilliant exits and M&As. So, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. And to warm up and get to know each other better, my first question is to all of you. Why a startup studio, basically? Why did you choose this particular professional path? So, who can start? Your personal story, your personal reasons.
Why I decided to start this path? Well, okay, it's something that I've been having in mind for a long time. It's like from 2011, but at that moment I was on another venture, and so I wasn't able to pursue this path. But anyway, it's right now, it's from 2008 that I am in a startup ecosystem. So I worked for two scale-ups as a manager. One was Bakek.it that was an online classified company. I was a commercial director there. Then I acted as a commercial director of Glamour.com. And there was a scale-up again that we exited to the Italian Yellow Pages after 1.5 years from the foundation. Then, well, I've done some consultancy for 2 years, and after that, I founded my own startup in 2013 and exited in 2018. And I mean, the startup studio, once you work for a while in this kind of businesses, the startup studio just felt like a natural a natural path to pursue. I mean, you want to have more impact, so you want to create more. So I mean, why you do have to continue and create, being a serial entrepreneur until instead of a parallel entrepreneur. Yeah, that's it.
It's the love of 0 to 1, right? If you love finding opportunities and building companies from scratch, the studio model lets you do that day in and day out. And so I had gotten exposure to the model, I think back in 2011 was the first time I encountered a studio. And a few years ago, when I hit a crossroads, like, well, I've got access to deal flow. I could go start a venture fund. But for me, I have to build stuff. And the venture fund would not provide that, but the studio would. So even though the studio was harder, I'm like, that is much more aligned with who I am. And so that's the path I'm going to go down.
This is the best model. Yeah, true. Farouk?
Yeah, I would say the same. So when you love building, it's the essence that you want to build as much as you can and see the results as fast as you can. So the ideology behind the startup studios is that you can see the results as fast as possible, not only with your own team and your own resources, but you can help and contribute to talented teams, talented founders that you can help in their journey when they want to build their startups. So you can do the things that will take like 10 years wrapped around 1 year and do it quickly and collaborate with each other to do it better than just alone. So for me, it's the builder mentality is the biggest thing that every successful startup studio that I have seen had inside them. The founders were builders.
So basically, this mindset that we all have in common.
Yeah, that it's not just about money, because if it's not about money investment, the VC route is better, but it's more about the products. It's more about testing what hypotheses, validating ideas, and doing things faster than a traditional company or a traditional startup can do.
Yeah, and here we can also have more flexibility on that. I mean, pivot, kill, whatever, but again, think about, as you said, like domain, like impact, like product and services. Okay, great, thanks. So then let's move to maybe diversity of venture studios as such. I just would like maybe to start with Matthew and ask about key factors that from your experience, from your background, like key factors that really influence venture studio design. What approaches and values should be carefully considered right from the outset?
There's a lot, and they all kind of intertwine, which is the real challenge in studio design. So, I step back a little bit and I look at a studio as it's a company designed to build other companies. Yeah. So that could mean we're going to build for, venture funding. That could mean we're going to build companies with a path going to private equity or just M&A acquisition, or just companies that generate cash flow and return distributions to investors. Like, all those work. It changes the structure and how you design the studio and how you're going to do the operations piece of it and, your finance piece, but all of those are the same kind of thing. So fundamentally, if you step back, every studio has 4 customers. You've got the investors in the studio. You've got the staff and the general partners that are going to run the studio, the entrepreneurs that you're going to partner with, and follow-on capital, whether that's VC, debt financing, anything out there. As you define what you're going to build and the customers you're going to have, you really start creating the constraints that are going to influence your studio design. And another big constraint really is the environment you're going to operate in. So, a studio in the US, for example, upmarket VC exists. If you're in Africa or South America, there's not as much of it. And so designing just for a VC path might not make as much sense. In those markets, designing for M&A or private equity might make a lot more sense. So you really have to take into account where you're building, the kind of companies you're building, and what the expectations are for performance, because your job is to build companies that can go off and, if they need to, raise additional capital successfully. That's the goal, right? Design these companies right, set them up for success. And you know what that's going to be because you're designing this whole thing from the beginning.
Exactly. I do agree with. So thumbs up what for everything that Matthew said. Yeah, it's definitely that. I mean, you should really adapt to the environment where you're building. And I mean, I think that we can never stress this enough. I mean, so it's not, being a venture builder doesn't mean that you need to design a company for VC path. So it's one of the outcome. Yeah. And it might be the right one. Yeah. But it's not the only one. I mean, corporate venture building, for example, corporate venture builder or corporate startup studios or whatever, corporate company builder or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they are working for a different path. So they have different goals because they are aligned with the strategic view of the corporate. So it's a different thing. So it really depends on what is the goal. Or instead, if you're building companies that needs to be sustainable, because I don't know, you're building in an emerging country, so, and you're trying to do it, or you do it as an NGO. Okay, so it really depends. But the only things, I mean, we can sum all this up by saying, yeah, you need to design companies that needs to be successful. So you need to do it as best as you can. That's it.
Yeah, I know that when you launched Mamazon, basically you had this huge research. You talked to 70 plus founders of the 150 startup studios, and yeah, my question basically was to you, like, what did you really find, and what key elements, like, I don't know, maybe magic elements you put inside because your success rate is 84%, something like that. I mean, in terms of
I mean, right now we have a very good graduation rate. I mean, 100% of our companies have went through a seed, but this doesn't mean success at all. I mean, we are still in the path. I mean, the only studios that can talk about proper success are studios with like a long run of like building and exiting, building and exiting, building and making work. So we are right now, of course, we do have a fund, we do have companies launched. So we are, let's say, at least a mature studio, we can say, or on definitely on that path. But yeah, okay, what I've learned, well, by observing, by researching a lot, by interviewing a lot of studios, which I mean, in the world, we were not too many people doing that until now. I mean, right now it became like I don't know, if you don't have a studio, but you don't have a studio, really? Yeah, I mean that's it. Yeah, I mean it's the new trend, right? It's a buzzword. It's becoming really cool. I mean, yeah, run a studio. Oh, fuck, you run a studio. Yeah, okay. So, but okay, at that moment, there were me, Alper Selen, and a few other people looking for this concept. And then, of course, Matthew joined, and I mean, he raised a lot of awareness, and he worked a lot. We also worked through a white paper together, and I mean, we tried to raise as much awareness as we could, and we're still doing that. But okay, what I learned, I saw that most successful venture studio, they have a path. I mean, the validation techniques and the pattern that they use, it's pretty much the same. I mean, the playbook, yeah, it can change a little bit from here to there, but I mean, the only thing that is straight, and it's always like that, it's that, hey, good studios, they have a repeatable process for going from A to B, zero, so from ideation to the spinning off a company. They do have and they do have a repeatable process for recruiting successful founders. I mean, you will find pretty much the same patterns in validation, in recruiting founders, in raising money, in keeping the cap table clean, in having a bold control on the companies to make them work.
Yeah.
Because you are there as a warranty for investors that things will work fine. So, or at least that you have enough bold control to make it work fine. It's something, I don't know, go south, right? So yeah, I mean, we can talk for about this forever. But I don't know. I will leave it to Matt and also Farouk. I mean, maybe they want to add something.
Yeah, Farouk, I know that DŌBRA is well. How long did you start the studio? I mean, like more than 5 years ago, also.
Yeah, it's like close to 10.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's 10. And when you describing it around, it's basically on your website. You said that we're not VC, we're not incubator or accelerator, we're a startup studio where we invest our own capital and use our experience and network to grow the startups into the successful companies. So I see here a lot of sincerity in description, because my question is for you. Are you really tired of being compared to other venture builders and ecosystem players? And again, what are your key facts of this venture studio journey? I know that now you're not very on operations. So why? Maybe again, also very interesting to say, like 10 years record, and so. How was it?
a few things is that there is a very clear distinction between different services and different entities, and not a lot of founders or basically startups pay attention to these things. But the main thing that we've learned is that startup studios are not co-founders, same as the VCs are not the co-founders, and they're not the startup founders. The CVCs are not the startup founders. They cannot do the job of a startup founder. So for a startup to become successful, no matter the help of any VCs, any startup studio, any CVC, any other routes, any angel investors, is primarily responsibility of the startup founder itself. And every startup that wants to become successful, they should have great founders. That's the first step. Where the startup studios come to play is in the first stage, especially in the first stage of their journey, because from the idea validation to product market fit, every startup goes through the same journey. It's not something it's a very different. It's the same journey. Is that the problem that I picked the right problem? Is the solution and the approach that I picked, that I'm betting on, is it working or not? Is my hypothesis right or wrong? So same thing to any startup in any industry. Different approaches, same process. And startup studios can deliver the results faster. They can do this job much faster. They can develop the MVPs much faster. They can do the market research, do the product research much faster and with higher level of clarity, because they have done it before. It's just like an expert that has done this so many times. They know the product, they know the sales cycle, they know the CAC, they know the CLV. So they know all of these. The things that the CVCs, VCs, angels, they have expertise in their own area, but because they are not doing the legwork themselves, it's not 100%. So when a startup joins a studio or joins these kind of programs, that is like a boost. It's very similar to an acceleration that is only 100% on yourself. On acceleration, you have different helps, but in that, startup funds are on themselves. So that's what the studios can help in the beginning. But as the startups grow, and we have seen this in our company as well, and they become bigger startups, they reach some sort of product market fit or they are scaling up, we have to pay attention that each startup is their own company. So they are 100% different from any other portfolio that a system might have. Same as any VCs, because VCs don't put all of their portfolio in one basket. There are different people, different companies, different journeys, different metrics, different KPIs. So you cannot bulk everyone together and manage, for example, 10 teams as one team. Each team, each startup is their own. They have their own identity and they have their own journey that they are going through. And this kind of independence should be secured in the studios, same as it should be secured when they are bootstrapping or they are raising funds, doesn't matter. But Studios are here to help on the things that they can help, not running the company, not managing the company, on the things that they can help reduce time, manage resources, and manage everything that they can to help and to become a facilitator for that startup.
So basically, it's about the playbook, the processes that we create. Cool. Yeah. So let's move to then ideation and validation. Again, too many approaches that studios utilize. For instance, at DŌBRA, we can say that we're very data driven at this stage. So we have so many special sources that we use for data analysis and data sourcing and generating insights from structured and unstructured data. So I mean, very, very, very data driven. This is, as we see, our key feature on this stage, and we work with our own ideas. So we don't attract, for instance, founders with their own ideas. So we generate the ideas from very, very beginning. So, but again, it's one of the approach, and there's so many of them. So guys, from your perspective, what the best ideation or validation approaches you utilize in your own studios and projects, and what is your attitude to decision-making process for recognizing market demand for a future product or service? So maybe just your insights on that.
Yeah, and talking to so many studios, one thing I've noticed is there's definitely a spectrum for especially how ideation happens. On one extreme, it's like really high volume, very quick down select to focus on something. The other extreme is we're going to go look at an area. We don't know how, what the idea is specifically, but we know there's an opportunity in this space. Let's go find it. Both those work. Because at the end of the day, it's, you take that idea that looks like there might be something there. Let's go validate it. And that, I think, is where the magic happens, especially with the studio, because as Farhuk was saying, it's about making sure we do this work at a high quality standard. If you're independent an independent startup founder, you don't have a lot of resources. It's you, maybe a co-founder or two. It's your own pocketbook. You don't have a lot. And you have so many other things to do as well. Plus, you absolutely love this idea that you're pursuing. And the studio can sit back here and take a little bit more objective approach and go, hey, let's actually try to kill it first. Right? Instead of searching for proof that we're right, which we can always find, it's called confirmation bias. It gets in the way all the time. It's like the #1 killer of startups. Let's search for disconfirmation. Let's try to kill it. But the goal isn't to kill it. The goal is, hey, as we find weakness in this opportunity, how do we fix it? Can we fix it quickly enough and to the point where it looks like this is actually something that can survive and thrive? Great, let's move forward. And a lot, studios have different ways to kind of evaluate this. Sometimes it's, can we get at least 4 letters of intent from customers to buy it? If we try to take this away from potential customers, they demand that we bring it back. There's a lot of ways you can test that early on to say, okay, this looks like there's enough market interest for us to actually invest and start building it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's many approach. Yeah, the only approach that I don't love and that I think, and I always say the same thing. I mean, there is a repeatable approach. I mean, repeatable process, or there is just a bunch of people building random shit, which is not what studios should do, at least. I mean, so we since we have a lot of studio out there right now, so we need to start distinguish between studios and studios. So, right. So yeah, I mean, let's say for Amazon, our approach is to mainly we focus on specific areas, and we have a specific business model that we're looking for, a specific kind of businesses that we're looking at. And then in that area, we usually start by using the framework, the jobs to be done framework. So we go through an interview open to the world. So we need to interview those customers, we focus on micro businesses, we focus on professionals and so on, sales, self-employed people, right? Esthetician and so on. So we do customer discovery. We want to know how they spend their day, what they do. And so we mainly open. So we're not looking for something. So, and when we see something come up and they start to complain about something, so we say, hey, there might be an opportunity here. So we start to dig a little bit deeper. And then we do the same with their customers to see if there is something, I mean, what is there, if it's something, I mean, that it's related to the customer, right? And then we do some tests. We run some tests, as Matthew was saying. It's not uncommon that we I don't know, build a landing page based on what they said and try to actually sell that product. And I mean, without having it, right? Again, no, to see if there is enough people calling us. And usually when we start a product, even if we, let's say that we manage to sell that product, right? And we say, oh, there's enough rush. And then usually we call them and say, hey, I mean, the product is still not available and so on. I mean, but hey, here, I don't know, here I would give you compensation for your time. I mean, because you spent some time on it. And then we usually say, but we are developing this product. So we want to know why, I mean, why you clicked, why you want to buy this product. What is the reason behind it? So for example, we started a pet grooming at your doorstep. So there are pet groomers that comes at your home, right? And so we had super rush in the very beginning, a lot of people with a very small customer acquisition cost running on the landing page without having the product. And then we called them, said, because we wanted to understand why they booked it. I mean, is that because their pet groomer it's not available that day? Because that's not a need. Or it's because, I don't know, they're having problems going to the pet groomers because of the, I don't know, because of the opening hours, or because, I don't know, their dog is stressed, or it fears going outside the house, okay? And so we found a lot of evidence showing that this was an actual problem. And since we are doing this on several ideas, our only goal is to kill as much ideas as we can. So this is the way. So we have very data-driven process. I mean, our only goal is to eliminate, and we usually also keep, like, when we go through a customer discovery, even when we know, let's say we do the first customer discovery and then we find that that's a problem, and then we go through other customer discoveries to deep dive in that problem, then we usually have like paper here, so with the questions that we don't have to ask, like don't ask questions about the future. Don't say, oh, or condition, like, oh, and what about if, no question like that. And so only questions about present and past. So what happened, or what are you doing now? Why are you doing it? And it's always, oh no, I see, like, no, I don't see anything. Like, okay, oh, okay, so you do this. Why? And right now, as we will have access to the beta, because I mean, I think that we have a good thing here that we need to hear, because Matthew has done something great out there. Yes, I mean, sorry, it's amazing. I mean, the things that you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you. I want to hear from Hook. We can go into that, but also add.
Yeah, let's further.
In this space, why is a dangerous question sometimes? Because people will tell stories, and those stories, we're all human, right? We embellish a little bit here and there, and are we going to end up believing those embellishments? That can be problematic. Asking the facts. what made you go do this? What drove you to this decision? How did you get there? You're encouraging them to give you the facts versus tell you the story. So we all like why. It's so natural to ask why. It is not natural to ask anything but why. And it's a real challenge.
Farouk, some your insights on killing ideas, on validating ideas. So what is your...
I always said that the startup studios are a gold mine for the startup ideas, because we have seen all of it in the past. And I always say that the best ideas for startups are the problems that we ourselves had. So the problems that the founders themselves firsthand experienced, and they are expert on it. And that's what constitutes the best startup ideas, because we have seen the problem and we have an idea, a hypothesis how we can solve it. 8 out of 10 startups that I see, they don't have any idea of the problem, not their solution. They don't know about the problem per se. They think they have some kind of imagination. What is the problem that they should solve? For example, and it's usually a trend. It's climate change one day, it's VR another day, it's Web3 another day. And it's some kind of buzzword that they have seen and they have some experience, but they don't know the real problem, the real need behind it. But because of the nature of work of the startup studios, they know, because they have done this before. They had a project before that they experienced same exact thing that they are facing today. So they can basically evaluate what are the most common problems that I'm seeing every day in my industry. And since there are different experts in different industries talking to each other, collaborating, partnering with each other, they can be experts in different industries at the same time. So that's what gives the real nature and real power to ideas that comes out of startup studios, because you can bet that they have experienced it in the past. It's one level of idea validation already done. Because let's face it, all of our hypotheses can be wrong. We have people coming out of Google, Microsoft after 20 years running their startups, and their hypothesis is completely wrong. It's the problem doesn't exist, the market doesn't exist, the approach is wrong, and that happens. That's happened every day. So, and since our hypothesis can be wrong so often, it's good to have the expertise. It's good to have the nature and the root cause of each problem before even trying to build a startup, trying to build a product or an MVP. It's that we have to experience it ourselves. So I think founders who experience it firsthand, and they are basically expert on that, they have the highest potential to make a successful startup. Because if their approach is wrong, and it usually is, they can pivot, change their idea, change their solution, change their approach until it works.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Matthew, tell us more about anti-bias customer discovery approach. I've read recently on your LinkedIn, and I think it's about like uncertainty that we all face in these decisions. So some thoughts on that, and why you really believe in that.
Building on what Farouk just said, founders, they've got an idea, right? They've experienced the problem. They think it's a big problem for everybody. And when they start going out and having those conversations, because it's their idea, often the way they phrase those questions, well, we refer to them as mud pie. So, imagine you're a parent, your doorbell rings, you open the door, it's your kids. And they're like, look, I just made this for you. It's a pile of mud. You're not going to be like, this is horrible. Why the hell did you do this? Just get away. You're like, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. Thanks. When, the reality is like, no, not quite. But this is exactly what founders do. They're like, isn't my product amazing? And you know what they're looking for in an answer. They want some encouragement. and you don't want to be the person that just destroys them. So you're not going to destroy them, even if you're like, this is like the worst idea I've ever seen in my life. Like, get it away. Founders look at that and they're like, I'm right. And now they've got proof that they're right, and they double down and they get locked in, and it becomes really hard to pivot. And it's all really because of how they frame the questions. So wording matters a lot. And it's really hard to do this right because, well, we're all human. We've got cognitive biases. They show up in everything we do, and we don't see when we make these mistakes. And so me and my co-founders actually at the startup and the studio got to go through a program where we learned all this. And it was absolutely brutal because you're trying to unlearn human nature, and that just doesn't feel good ever. And as some of the AI technology advanced, we realized like, hey, there's actually a way to deliver this value and this insight so that you can see how you're influencing the answer by how you're asking the question in a way that you don't have to get trained. It's just there. And we've got a beta out. I know Farhad has been using it a little bit. And it's real simple. You put in the question you're going to ask. You're planning to do some customer discovery. Put the question in, you hit analyze. It'll say, hey, the way you phrase this question, you're bringing these biases into the question, and it's going to influence the answer. Now, you can never eliminate bias. It's human nature. It's going to be there. Yeah. But you have, now that you can see it, you have the opportunity to rephrase the question, to ask a better one, or know how that answer is being shaped when you review the answers. And that's often the piece that we miss at the end of the day, because we ask the question, like a couple of weeks later, we look at the answer, we take the answer at face value. And we probably shouldn't. So
you basically create a kind of software that can studios utilize? I see. Wow.
Actually, anybody, any product manager, market researcher, UX researcher, studios, of course, because this came from an internal tool. Like we were doing this manually, which is very painful to learn and train. We're like, let's make it easy. And we've got a large update coming down soon to make it even better. So
yeah, that's what we really made at Ideation. So we also created our own web because we really believe that
this is going to be an interesting area for studios overall, because AI is booming. Every studio is implementing AI in their processes, and for a lot of studios, you could actually take some of those processes and make them available to everybody else, and that can either generate revenue to offset operations cost, which is always nice, or it can become a startup itself. And that's the direction that we're taking with this one, because we see some broader opportunities as well. But like this is also like kind of one of the dangers in being a studio, because you're exposed to so many opportunities, so many problems. Which ones do you pursue? Like Farhad was saying, as you do all that customer discovery, you're exposed to everybody in this industry. So you start seeing not just the problem you were going after, but all the problems around it. And now you have the opportunity, like, hey, let's pick this one up. Let's go find the right founder to pair it with. Somebody that has experienced this problem. We now know who those people might look like, right? Because we know the probable background, and we can hop on LinkedIn and try to find somebody.
Thanks for moving to my next part of the discussion. Co-founders mentioned, I mean, this is also quite important and amazing stuff that we really should focus on. And truly, we have intense competition in the market for better founders. And for instance, we believe that our model, like venture studio, at least DŌBRA, is a great fit for first-time and part-time founders. With as we focus on impact and this track, for instance, on mental health, surely we're looking for someone with, again, this domain expertise as well, not only like past exits on, I don't know, on fintech or whatever, but with a domain expertise in, for instance, mental health and well-being. So, and my question to all of you, for which type of founders is the venture studio most suitable? Because for sure there are so many other opportunities, to pursue your entrepreneurial, skills and potential. So let's maybe talk about that. For whom we are the best match, and whom we need as a venture builders, as a venture studios, what type of founders, co-founders we really need?
Well, I'd say for most studios, because most studios are going to offer, a lot of support, but also salary or, some sort of, salary at day one.
Yeah.
We're attractive to almost everybody. Depending on the level of support you're providing, the resources you're providing, even successful exited founders are very attractive to that because they know how difficult that first couple of years can be. And going through it with a team that knows it, and you don't have to train them, and you're able to offload a lot of work, is very valuable. So the challenge, right, really falls on us as studios. How do we find the right people to partner with to build companies? They definitely have to have that entrepreneurial streak in them. They've got to be able to take that risk. In a studio model especially, they have to be coachable. This is one of the things I think we tend to look for the most, because unlike an accelerator where we're more of a mentor in that model, in the studio, I take a much more active role and really shape the direction of the company alongside you. You have to be coachable. Because in many studio models, you do have the power to remove the founder because you are a capital investor as well. And once that board is there, well, the CEO reports to somebody. all of us as founders have been there.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Farooq, Farhad, someone from you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, studio, it's a desirable, I think, outcome if you're looking for the right co-founder for your startups, if it's a co-founder studio, or if you're looking to join a good founder, if it's a founder studio in our case, for example. Yeah, well, studios, usually we are looking for experienced founders. So people that have already been there. They know their road, they're able to manage a team, they're able to raise some money, and so we are here to give them the speed that they didn't have, I mean, in their first venture. I mean, the reason why at least I decided to start a studio is that because I mean, if I was a founder, it's a wonderful choice. I mean, it's like having someone, like, say, who's taking at least 2 years out of your journey, 2-3 years out of your journey, making things super easier at the very beginning, having a complete staff that is working with me, having legal support, having, press office support, having, all the term sheet in place, being sure of not messing up, having old investors they're looking to invest in my startup, and so on. I mean, it's something that any founder, I would start my next startup if I was going to with the studio. No way I'm going to do it alone again. I mean, being alone, yeah.
Same.
I would say startup studios are best for founders who are looking to build a team and learn, as mentioned before. So, because I believe that, yeah, some of us are lucky. We found our co-founders very early on. Some of us are not lucky, just like myself. It takes time to find the right partner that you can build a real amazing team together. And usually you go through a few bad apples before finding the right partner and the right co-founders. And I believe the best way that you can find the right co-founders is that you work with them beforehand. Not as co-founders, just working together. Maybe they were hired, maybe you work on their project, you were hired by them anyway, because you can see the real truth. They're not your friend, they're not your basically the family members. They are someone who should be competent and trustworthy in their workspace. You should work well together like a well-oiled machine. You should match and be compliant to compatible to each other. So one of the great things about studios is that you can do this in a startup studios. You can build your core team and your future co-founders in your startup studio, because when you start, everyone is doing everything. So you are doing like a job of 3 people, 5 people all by yourself, and your co-founders should do the same as well. So in that high pressure environment, you can find real gems that be with your co-founders there together. And thank God my current co-founders, I have been working with them for past 8 years now. So finding them was one of the greatest achievements that I have done in my life, because that's very hard. It's not something that happens like in one day or in a meeting, or you see someone in a conference on an event and say, okay, let's build an empire together. It doesn't work like that. You have to have experience working together. And that's one part of the studios can help. The other part is that all the little things that each company, each startup should do, but they're not very comfortable doing, from accounting to the laws and everything else, from basically market research, product research. There are a lot of legworks that are repetitive tasks that you can do much, much better as part of a studio rather than a standalone founder, because you have to do everything. So these two parts are the best one for founders who want to build a team, build a successful growing business, learn while they are doing that, because it's all about learn by doing. And also they want to get there faster. Instead of developing an MVP and waste 1 year of your time and your life on a wrong hypothesis, you shouldn't do that. You should find solutions that you can find out, is my project, is my idea worth doing or not in shortest amount of time. And that's very it put a high pressure on the founders and on the startups, but that's how you get the best startups. You put highest pressure possible on them, and the real gems show themselves.
Well, thanks. Yeah. Attracting co-founders is directly related to the equity distribution. And we all know that cap table is a pain point when it comes to the venture studio model, because many ecosystem players, like, I don't know, VCs, for instance, they don't even understand or accept the approach when a studio holds more equity than co-founders. And like Matt, I know you spend like thousands of hours on this cap table analysis and at different stages of startup. So I have 2 questions for you, and then maybe guys will jump into as well. How do you assess the role and value of the studio, and what equity stake is fair enough in this cap table? I don't know, at early pre-seed, at seed, and